Hello, everyone. Thanks for coming into the podcast. Here we are in episode 261 of the Lean Look Great podcast. Thanks for coming in and checking out the podcast. I hope you enjoy this week's episode. So today I want to go over on a Linux topic, something really quick, and something I wanted to share to you guys about my opinions, and not just an opinion, but a piece that I've just gone over today on a distro of Linux, which is Ubuntu. So Ubuntu, it seems that it looks like things have shifted a different path, not the way we expected it to be, unfortunately. And so this is where I wanted to go in and cover this article, and something I've noticed with Ubuntu Linux. And so that's the distro I wanted to go over in today. And Ubuntu, as I will say, as myself, I used to recommend it to people for those starting out. Now I don't think it's a good kernel or OS I would recommend to anyone at this point, because there's so many options to this point, and where everybody can start picking out their OSs. And now, even though Ubuntu is the drive by Debian, I have a lot of questions in mind, especially with the future of Ubuntu. And a lot of people have been saying about Ubuntu's decisions lately. And while I won't think that it's not, people aren't going to just switch out of Ubuntu overnight, but it just keeps me questioning what's been happening in the Ubuntu camp so far, and I don't seem to like it so lately. And when people say about the Ubuntu more and more, and I mean, this just hasn't happened overnight or anything like that at all. I mean, there's been a lot of news especially when you go to Ubuntu forums, communities, and what Canonical, the company behind Ubuntu, that's been that's the company developing Ubuntu and getting it to be better and better. But then now we see companies that wants to implement Agenic AI. Now, if you think Windows 11 is already bad enough and the whole ecosystem, I don't know, because Ubuntu, it's starting to pave that same path. I'm starting to notice too, and I do have two things I want to criticize going forward. And the article I want to go over in this segment here in the show, which is Ubuntu's Linux will begin landing AI features throughout the next year. And so this article came out April 27th, 2026, just yesterday, actually. And so here it goes on to say, now that Ubuntu 26.04 LTS has shipped, Canonical is opening up on their next major focus for Ubuntu development. Lots of AI features. That's right, everybody. That part I did not stutter. So that part right there, it says AI features, and which tells you what is going on with Canonical's plan. And so, I mean, a lot of people have been questioning this too. And I will say that years ago, like 2013, when I started Ubuntu didn't start out with all AI, because generative AI or agentic AI wasn't such a thing back then. And then now you go over the plans with Canonical lately, it's been questionable. And now they want to be paving the path forward, just like Microsoft is. And I'm just thinking, yeah, it's one of those operating systems I used to recommend to start out. Now, if you guys want to start with any Debian system, I would say Debian is fine. Mint, Zorin, Pika OS, if you're a gamer, that's a good start for you. Or whichever Debian distro that's out there instead of Ubuntu. And I can see why people have not accepted Ubuntu as of late, because they've had a lot of questionable decisions. So going over here in the article, John Sigerman, as a VP of Engineering at Canonical, wrote a post on the Ubuntu discourse today outlining the future of AI in Ubuntu. Canonical is ramping up their AI push for Ubuntu that will begin with enhancing existing OS functionality via AI models, running in the background to more AI natives features further down the development roadmap. And then it goes on, various AI features for Ubuntu Linux are expected to land over the next year with a bias on local interfering by default. Canonical engineers will be working on integrating agentic workflows onto Ubuntu for those that want it. So I don't know what that part says when it means about for those that want it. To me, I really hope this is just optional than being forced in it. So I wanted to go over something where I have a problem now. I can see the layout and why people have now been very much vocal critics of Canonical lately. And so this is two things I've actually noticed this myself. One is the hardware requirements about how you are running your hardware. Now, whether it's desktop or laptop. Now, years ago, when Ubuntu came out many moons ago, the hardware requirement was much, much less, actually. And then later on, for every Ubuntu upgrade, then the hardware requirements continues to jump up higher, and then it went from 512 megabytes to 1 gigabytes, and then the minimum required will go from 1 gigabytes to 2 gigabytes, and then now currently it is 4 gigabytes. Now the current release on Ubuntu is 26.04. So that right there, now with 26.04, it requires 6 gigabytes now. And this is where I find an issue with this right here is the RAM requirements is higher this time. And people are saying that, first of all, that is not a good thing, because you're going to have people to buy more RAM. And this is where also the problem I find having these crazy hardware requirements. And Ubuntu wasn't supposed to be the operating system that I remember that's supposed to be a very much of a resource hog, and before it would used to work on older PCs. Like I remember running Ubuntu 13. It was a really great system back then too, and Canonical, I would say that Canonical did such an amazing job with Ubuntu, with its overall layout features. And that's where I go back now. I seem to question the future of Canonical's decision on agentic AI, because that's just one thing that I think that's just going to step people and say, no, I'm not taking this route, because if this is the route that they're going to do the same thing what Microsoft is doing with with Windows 11, and who knows what's going to happen if Windows 12 is going to be fully agentic and probably not going to give you a lot of choices down the road. And I don't know where things are going to go at with Ubuntu, and also I'm questioning as well, where already now it seems that they want to push the hardware requirements a lot higher, where right now in a time where the hardware is already expensive enough as it is for RAM prices. It's ridiculous when you check online now. I'm not going to upgrade my RAM because it's already too expensive, and I do think it's just a shame, because Ubuntu used to do well, but now everyone's questioning with Ubuntu's decision, and I'm just like, sorry, I can't recommend Ubuntu now because of what they're going through as well. And so also the second point, as I've just read there, is also the fact that they want to rely on on the Agentic OS model, which is not good. And I'll tell you why it's not good, because no one has ever asked to for any of this stuff, because I don't think anyone in the Linux community or anyone in the right mind would ever want Agentic OS pretty much pre-installed into your computer. And I do think that AI should be a choice to have it installed locally in your computer, not forcefully. That's just my opinion alone right there. Yeah, it is quite ridiculous where they're putting all these brand new minimum requirements, especially with a time where, like I've said, hardware expensive, like RAM has gone to a point it's pretty bad, and next thing I know, what I've been hearing lately around the news, which I'll be talking about this in the next episode, about the CPU shortage. Which, if you thought the RAM prices is bad, there's been a lot of talks on the interwebs now that CPU prices will be soaring higher. And even though people say, well, it's better to wait, I don't know if it's even better to wait now, because it's going to be a problem. Because for those of you who are building your very first PC or having a Linux distro version of your PC, that could probably be a problem. But that's why I say, if you have the money, I would say spend the money now, whenever chance you have. And because of this, going back with Ubuntu, I think Ubuntu is not something I would ever recommend anymore to one of my colleagues and friends or family. I'm just like, no, thank you. And to me, I'm pretty much happy with two of my operating systems, especially with Linux Mint and then Linux Nobara, which both of them work great. I'm pretty happy with the use of these two systems, and so I have nothing wrong to say about these two kernels whatsoever. So going over here, what the article also contains about the Ubuntu operating system. Throughout 2026, we'll be working on enabling access to Frontier AI for Ubuntu users in a way that is deliberate, secure, and aligned with our open source values by focusing on the combination of education for our engineers, our existing knowledge of building resilient systems, and our strengthening Silicon partnerships. We will deliver effective local interference, powerful accessibility features, and a context-aware OS that makes Ubuntu meaningfully more compatible for the people who rely on it. Ubuntu is not becoming an AI product, but it can become stronger with durable AI integrations. So, okay, now this is where I have to stop right there. And the last sentence of this post is where I come out and say I disagree with this, because AI has its limits, and to say that it will become stronger and thoughtful AI integrations and have that integrations in there, I don't know if that's all that correct whatsoever. Look, if you want good AI, I think you should give people options to even remotely give the options to people. I'm just saying, nothing should be forced on there too. I do think Canonical has jumped into a very, very slippery slope when you're just embedding AI onto every crap there is to any operating system. I think it's all control, to be honest. It really is too. Anyways, that's just my 2 cents on it. And someone that I used to like Ubuntu back in the day, 2013, and then moving forward, thinking, oh, probably I will have Ubuntu again. Probably not though, because now you just got so many kernels, OSs, whatever, and you're just going by and saying this is the shit. And who knows, whatever OS you're using, there's plenty of things to experiment and play around, which I plan on doing more so in the future, and probably get a brand new, not brand new, but a used laptop, and then slap down a Linux ISO on it, and there we go. It'll be just as good as new. Tell me what you think about this decision with Canonical. Are you a person that uses AI, or do you use AI locally onto your computer? Now, if you're a fan of AI, let me know. I am interested. What's your take on this as well, and this one? Because like I said, Canonical, really? But either way, I definitely think that the Ubuntu thing, or the kernel, has its issues, because, and also I haven't even said this at all, and I think the last part I want to mention is snaps, and a lot of people have even talked about the Snap Store, and which they've already integrated onto your Ubuntu on Ubuntu OS, and it's not good. I just don't see this as a good sign, because what I find with people talking about snaps is the rollouts on snaps is very slow compared to a Flatpak, which, while Flatpaks, they say that it's like GOAT, is like the GOAT of all of having your applications downloaded right there, and most of your applications will run well through Flatpaks. I think the only exception I would say is like Steam, or a few applications that you can't really find on Snap. But again, that's a very much of a topic I'm just going over. But I think that Flatpaks delivers a lot more than what the Snap Store does. But either way, my opinion alone, and my opinion over here about Ubuntu. But let me know what you think. Will you be still using Ubuntu, or probably not? Let me know. Take care, everyone. Have a good day, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you're listening to me from. Take care, everybody. Bye for now.